Okay, so we've had a little bit of time talking about what we like and maybe didn't like about this book. So we're going to move on just to have a think about some of the puzzles. So that might be anything that you didn't understand about this book, or it might be just any questions that you have about any parts of the book or characters. So does anyone want to start by telling us a puzzle? Let's start with Ruby and then we'll move round.
I didn't really get like the slang words, and some of the words I didn't really understand. Not like it was how they were written, not like different like words, but like how they were written. Kind of.
So you didn't really get the fact that the book was written in the way that you would speak in slang?
Yeah, because like I kind of speak in slang, but then like I can't really read it.
You found it quite difficult. Does anybody else have anything to say about the slang? About either why you think the writer might have done that, or any comments on the slang?
Yeah, I mean, I was like sometimes I do like say things like not like proper correctly like slang, or that like if I were like to ever write something, I would always write it in proper language. So I do find it a bit hard to read it. Like not many books are actually in slang. Like they're quite often in proper.
Yeah, we're not used to it, are we? It's quite colloquial, isn't it? So it may be the author's done it to kind of set it in place. Because even when I first started it, even when it said, you need to be able to pin this down so you can see it in your mind. And straight away I found that a bit unusual.
Yeah, to be honest, when I started reading like the year and stuff like that, I understood it because it's kind of a thing I like naturally say. And then when I started saying summer, you wouldn't say that. You'd say something or something.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, so it's just written.
I always talk in slang at school.
Yeah.
So I can vouch for that.
Yeah.
The other one I noticed quite often as well was like ear, E-R-E, apostrophe E-R-E, and he said that a lot, didn't he?
I'm here.
Yeah. So, and we would say that, but we wouldn't ever really write it. So that might be something as well that just makes this book just seem a bit different to other books, and that, you know, and we kind of think about it in a slightly different way. So we've had slang. Is there any other questions or puzzles that anyone would like to tell us about?
Caleb, we don't really know much of his backstory, and same with the mum, because like we don't know why she ran away. We don't know why she did certain things she's doing now.
And do you think that that's a kind of a good thing of the story, or would you like to know more about the backstory?
I think it's like good, but then again, you'd want to know more, but it is good not to know much, so it kind of just lets you want to read more and find out, see if you would find out.
And I think the idea of not having the backstory of the characters, it's quite an immediate book, isn't it? It's kind of happening now. You know, it starts at the end of year 5 and it ends at the end of year 6, and everything that happened before, maybe we don't need to know.
Yeah.
If it explained like everyone else's backstories, it would have been much longer.
And there might be people in your class who have things going on at home that you don't know about, but all you see is what they bring to school with them every day, and maybe that's what Matt Goodfellow's showing us as well. Any other kind of questions? If we were to ask, go on.
The bit at the end where it says that so like he'd been describing his dad as Jesus the whole book, and then he said he sees someone like Jesus.
Yeah, that's a real puzzle, isn't it?
That bit kind of scared me. 'Cause
Yeah.
By him describing him being looking like Jesus, like for a second I thought, has Nate just died?
Yeah, there was definitely, I mean, it says, doesn't it? It says, I think I hear someone shout my name from far away across the park, and I look over, and there's a silhouette of a man, and he's shouting my name, and he's walking towards us, and I stare, and I swear, as he steps out of the sun, the man looks like Jesus. Does anyone want to kind of pose what they think is happening at the end there?
I think it's his dad coming back, but also at some point, I can't remember, I think it was near the front of the book, they said that his dad went missing, he just walked.
He went for a wander because he got stressed.
And it said, oh, he could have been dead for all I know.
Yeah.
So we don't know, and his dad is there, although his dad's not in the story, he is there all the way through, isn't he? Because Auntie San's always saying, you know, since your dad went, your mum's never been the
His mum
same.
was always saying, you look so much like him and stuff.
And it always suggests his mum's looking for Jesus. So does anyone think it is his dad? What do we think's happening?
It could always be like symbolising that there is hope for the rest of the story.
Okay, tell me a little bit more about that.
Like because with Christianity and with Jesus, he died, went to heaven, and came back. So he was removing everyone else's sins from the world for going to hell.
So do you think that maybe it's more symbolic than?
So it could have been symbolising that it's not actually his dad or Jesus. It's just saying that there is hope left for the rest of the story and for his life.
That's a really interesting interpretation. What do you think? Do you think it is his dad?
Yeah, I think it is because, I mean, I know you said that you don't think it'd be his dad and he'd be going for a hug, but how else would he know Nate's name? Like, you're not going to see a kid and go like, oh, that's Nate, like off the top of your head without knowing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about Clem or Ruby? What do you think?
I think it is his dad, but I think I know why he didn't like open his arm for a hug, because like his mum might kind of feel like there's something still like missing from that, and there's something still a bit weird, like why he went off. Like, did he run away, or did he, like, I don't know, get like taken away, or
Yeah, I agree. Like, it could be his dad, but and like I get it, like why he put him on there for a hug and like anyway, wait, how old was he when he ran away? Because he might not.
He hadn't even been born, had he? He's never
Yeah,
met his dad.
then he wouldn't have known how old he like what he looked like and everything. So he might have just been testing if it was actually Nate.
Okay.
Yeah, and also, how would he know Nate's name if he ran away before he was born?
Yeah. How would he know Nate's name?
I mean, I think the interesting thing, isn't it, is that we don't know. We don't know whether it's really his dad. We don't know whether it's symbolic. We don't know whether it's just him hoping that it was his dad. And actually, that's okay, isn't it? So that's one big puzzle, isn't it? It's the end. And maybe that's something we could ask Matt Goodfellow if we got the chance, is to ask him how he thinks he would like us to interpret it. Did you have any questions about it? If you could ask Matt Goodfellow anything, Clem, what might you ask him?
I might like wonder like why he like did it in like all of those different like verses, and like why he didn't just like do it in like normal big pages.
Okay, so that's a really good question. Let's stick with that one for 1 second. So why did he choose to write this as a verse novel rather than just write it as a novel? That's a good question. Does anybody have any suggestions as to why?
Make it more like clear that where all was massive gaps, that it could be like Nate is trying to pausing to remember. Like, oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Because it is written from Nate's view.
Yeah, it's like
So it's
like Nate when he's older writing it.
Yeah, possibly.
or maybe at the time when he's writing it, so he's just like stopping for a bit and then continuing, not continuing on it.
So it's really like this kind of this narrative. It's like what's happening in Nate's head at the time that he's writing. And actually, we know that Nate writes poetry to help him.
Joshua gave him a book.
He gave him the book, yeah. And he encourages him to write poetry, and so by writing it in poetry, that's more reflective of Nate, maybe. What about any of the characters? Is there any characters, Ruby, that you would like to ask anything to?
I really want to know more about Caleb's background, because like it doesn't really say much about where he's from, or like how if his parents are like Nate's, or are they like do they go to bingo and that stuff, or do they stay at home and care for their children? And I think it says he's an only child. I can't really remember. Yeah. But if he's not, then I want to know if he is. Or isn't.
Do you want to know a bit about his family background and what's going on? And again, that's quite interesting because Nate and Caleb become friends, but I don't think Nate really finds out very much about Caleb's background. But it doesn't matter. And I also think it's quite interesting what Matt Goodfellow's done is to show that everybody responds to things differently, because Caleb doesn't get angry, he doesn't smash things up.
He's just calm.
He's just calm and he draws pictures.
He draws how he's feeling in a way.
I think that's very important, that you express your feelings in a way that hopefully won't harm other people.
Yeah, he expresses his feelings through drawings.
That's right.
He draws like happy, sad, what he's feeling.
And do you think Nate learns to express his feelings more like that as the book goes on? Through poetry? Yeah. And so that kind of output becomes more important to him. Soraya, have you got any kind of questions or puzzles that you would like to share?
I'd want to know more about why Turner bullies so much, and like if there's any, like if maybe he's getting bullied or hurt by his family or anyone, or maybe that happened to him when he was younger.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, isn't it? Because we do know a bit about Turner's. We know he's got these older brothers. We know that his older brothers are in trouble all the time. Didn't they one of them steal a bike?
He got kicked out of high school.
Yeah, that's right. And when they were on holiday, FPS texted Nate and said, "Guess who's here, Turner? His brothers are a nightmare, but he's actually really cool." So maybe there is more to Turner's background. And we know, don't we, from other books and films and stories that often bullies have got their own stuff going on. You know, we kind of know that. Okay, that's interesting. Any other questions?
I know this is a weird one, but is Turner's name his last name or his first name?
That's a good question. It's a good question because
Turner's a very common last name.
it is a very
it's not
common
generally
last name.
a first name.
No. And actually, PS is a nickname, so maybe Turner's a nickname.
Maybe Turner is a nickname because it's kind of symbolising he's trying to turn a new leaf,
Interesting.
but he can't.
Yeah. Okay, so it could be symbolic, couldn't it?
There are a lot of things in this book that could be symbolic. I do have a question
Go
I'd
on.
ask Matt. Would he continue writing about Nate's story, but when he gets older,
Okay.
maybe he'd write about the fact that does Nate become a poet, or does he kind of become a teacher in like high school who teaches English?
Or maybe he'd continue like and do Dylan's perspective of
Yeah.
everything.
Maybe.
Or like Dylan, or maybe Jack's.
Yeah.
Because we don't really. The thing is, we know a lot about Nate, but we don't know a lot about his younger brothers.
So whose story would we like to be able to tell the most? I'm going to open it up to other people as well. Wait 1 second, I'm going to come back to you. I'm going to go to Soraya.
I'd probably want Turner's,
Okay.
because if he were to do one on Turner's side, then maybe you wouldn't hate him as much, because
more
you'd
understand.
realise that he is going through stuff and that it might not be his fault that he's just being so mean.
Because if this wasn't Nate's story, if this was somebody else in Nate's class story, and we only saw from their perspective what Nate did, all we would know is that he smashes stuff up. So we wouldn't know.
Yeah, and then we would probably like think more bad of him, and then like
Exactly.
he's more back, like all that, like he gets quite angry at school a lot, and if he just smashes stuff up, then from like other people's perspective in the book, we wouldn't really he wouldn't be one of our favourite characters.
Exactly. So if we think about Turner, we only see that little bit of him, but we don't see what happens in his home, we don't see what happens in his family. So maybe if we had his story, we would get a little bit more. Yeah, good. Any other characters that we'd like to know more about?
Dylan, because I would like to know how Dylan felt during the heart problem.
Yeah.
Because
And Dylan's an interesting character as well, because although he recovers, we don't know he's going to be okay, do we?
It could get worse progressively.
because they said it's like a ticking time bomb.
That's right.
And then it went off, and then he seemed to be getting better, and then it happened again.
Yeah. So I've got one last question for you about this book. Does this book have a happy ending?
Yes.
No, it's so hard to know.
Okay.
Do we know whether it's dad or not?
So it ends on a cliffhanger? Yeah. If it's his dad, would that make it a happier ending?
It kind of gives you a hint that he might write another book.
Okay.
Because if he does, then we might have an explanation of if it's his dad or not, and if it is, then we'd say that the first one has a happy ending. But right now it's like a cliffhanger.
What do you think, Soraya? Do you think that this is a happy ending or not?
I agree. Like it does depend on if there's going to be a second one, because usually when there's a cliffhanger, you need to know more to decide whether it's good or bad.
But do you think there's at least hope at the ending, at least? Yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily mean just because there's hope, the only thing more powerful than hope is
Yeah.
fear. So there's always that bit of fear.
Before we finish the puzzles, is there anything, Clem or Ruby, that you'd like to add at this point, or comment or a question?
I mean, I think it was quite good because we know that Dylan's okay. Although it was still like a bit of a puzzle, like is it his dad, is it not? Like I feel like there should be a second book telling us more.
So we want to know a bit more.
Yeah.
There's a lot of puzzles,
I'd
isn't
like
there?
to know why there's also in the middle of the book just a random black page.
Okay, so this is an interesting question. We're going to talk about this one in a minute, but we'll just do this quickly before we finish this section. So why do you think there is?
Maybe it's just
Him
Wait,
getting
can I just
upset.
check to see?
Let's let everyone find it first of all, so that we can all have a look at it. So it's on
page 178.
Okay.
The page before is 177.
Maybe it's kind of like he's just pausing and just trying to figure out what's happening. That's why there's just such a blank page right there. In the page before, we would turn over. In the page before it says, I had two brothers and now I only have one, and it might be him trying to work out if he did I've already lost my dad, now I've lost my brother. And there's just a moment where he is just thinking.
There's a lost hope. It's feels like a real turning point in his life, doesn't it? Where everything just stops and stands still.
What I really like, this part where it says at 4 a.m. simple lesson in tenses. I had two brothers, past. I have one brother present. It's kind of saying that it's kind of relating to things you learn in school, because like you learn present and past, and then he's kind of
It links to SATs, doesn't it, as well?
It's kind of like it's saying his life is a lesson, and at the point where the 2 blank pages, it's like it's just time is standing still.
Exactly. Yeah.
He's always like in the room, but he's not there.
Yeah.